So welcome back, guys, for the first of 3 videos for this week's Mortal Realms Monday painting videos. I've decided to break this video, or this model, into 3 parts. The horse, the rider for the Night Haunts, and the rider for the Black Knights. So first of all, getting started with the horse in this video. I've gone ahead and primed the model with some black primer and then gave it a quick brush over with some thinned down Abaddon black just to get an even coverage of black all over the model. I'm now taking a large dry brush and a mix of, or a 50-50 mix of Abaddon black and Incubi darkness, and I'm just going to give this a dry brush over all of the cloth area. I want a dark, almost black cloth to this, so that I can match it with the Black Knight armor and also the Night Haunt rider. At the moment, I can't remember the name of the riders, but yeah. So the idea is to use this Incubi darkness as the highlight for the black, and then obviously we'll have the black recesses, still in the folds and things like that. So pretty straightforward and simple. The horse part shouldn't take too long for this video, so I'll get on with dry brushing this, and we'll come back in just a bit. Okay, so next up I'm taking some sotek green here and just adding a small amount to the Abaddon and Incubi mix, just to sort of brighten it up a little bit with the green, give it a little bit more of a green blue tint. The reason I'm doing this rather than using white is white will tend to dull down the colour, sort of mute it a little bit whilst brightening it, whereas with this I just wanted to brighten or lighten the colour a little bit, so the sotek green works well for that. What I'm doing is taking this, it's slightly thinned down, and applying this to all of the edges and a little bit on the sort of the flatter surface areas. And once that's done, as you can see here, I'll then go in and add a little bit more of the sotek green to brighten it up just a little bit more, and I'll again go back over the areas and pick off some more highlights, a little bit more along the sort of the top edges, and some of those sort of sharper highlight areas. So I'll get on with this, and then we'll come back for the next step in just a bit. Right, so with the cloth done, I'm now moving on to the skeleton of the horse, and for this I'm just going to apply a base coat of Morghast bone over all of the skeleton areas. So it's obviously the rib cage here, the little tail that he's got there, as well as the legs and the neck and head. Obviously working over black, although Morghast bone is a base paint, it will take a couple of layers to get this on. Obviously working with slightly thinned down paint to avoid brush marks and stuff like that, lumps and stuff. So yeah, a couple of coats, and then we can move on to the next step. So once all the bone is done, it's time to do some of the skin and stuff that's left on the horse. For this I'm just mixing up some Cadian flesh tone with the Morghast bone, just to lighten it slightly. The flesh tone is a bit too strong a pinkish colour, so the Morghast bone is going to obviously sort of pale it down a little bit. And I'm just going to put this over any areas that still has sort of a bit of skin or tendons and stuff left on it. So obviously it's some of the underside of the rib cage here, He's got a few little sort of tendons and stuff across his cheekbones. The back of his neck here, obviously the large tendon or skin, whatever that is supposed to be, as well as on his sort of the bridge area, the front of his face. There's a skin area there. Now, looking at some of the painting, the models on the GW website, it does show some of the skeleton horses that they're wearing sort of metal sort of head plates, but the way that the tendons and skin go over or just under the eye sockets on this, with this particular horse, it did look like that area was flesh and not metal, and so I did decide to do it as you know, a bit of loose skin or something on the front. So I'll paint that area with this as well. Again, it is slightly thinned down and it is obviously a bit pale, so 2 or 3 layers of this and we'll get a nice good coat of paint on there. Alright, so once the paint has dried, it's now time to start shading in the recesses. Now, for the sort of the tendons and the flesh areas, I'm using some Caribou Crimson here. What this will do is obviously give it a much sort of more vibrant pinkish red look to the skin, which is why I lightened down the Cadian flesh tone with the Morgus bone. If this had gone over the Cadian, we'd have a very strong sort of pink colour there, which I just don't think would have worked as well. So obviously going to apply this to those skin areas and move on to the next shade. Now, the way that I do the shading, is sort of because of being careful with them, I can do multiple shades on a model at once and let them dry. Obviously, if you're worried about mixing the shades together, then obviously do one shade at a time and let them dry before applying the next shade. And for the bone, I use some Reichland Flesh shade. I like to use this as it has a slightly reddish tint to it rather than the Agrax Earth shade, which is a lot heavier and a lot more brown. I like my bone to have sort of those darker recesses with a bit more of a yellow bone tint to it rather than the real pale white bone that you'll see a lot of the GW stuff use. Again, this is obviously all personal preference, which is the great thing about this hobby. You know, you can paint things how you like, but for me, yeah, I prefer the using the bone paints, the Morgus bone with the Reichland Flesh shade as a recess shade. So again, I'll apply this, let these 2 shades fully dry, and then we can come back and carry on with the highlights. Okay, so now the shading has had time to dry. I'm going back in and first of all working on the bone again, and I'm just using some Morgus bone to pick off the edges, obviously leaving the recesses with that shade and leaving you know, a small area of the shaded Morgus bone. So you've got the deep dark areas, and then that will sort of get lighter, and then as it comes towards an edge or a more flat surface, I'll have the thinned down Morgus bone. Now this is thinned down a little bit, which is why I'm using it from a slightly separate area to the Morgus bone. I've picked some up and then moved it on the palette to be able to thin it. What this will do is give a little bit more of a glaze over the top, so you'll get a bit more of a smoother blend from the sort of the stained shade area, and it will blend up into the highlighted area a little bit better. Right, and after the bone is done, I'll do the same thing using the flesh mix, and you can see here I'm just mixing up a little bit more and slightly thinning it down, and this will be used to do the same thing with the flesh areas and just sort of edge highlight and sort of brighten them up a little bit. You can see with the Camber Crimson over that Acadian flesh tone sort of mix, gives it a nice sort of raw reddish look, and then obviously you've got some of the highlight going on there. Right, and finally back to the skeleton. I'm just taking some Screaming Skull and just going in as a final edge highlight, picking off some of those more sort of upper areas. Obviously the rib cage doesn't need the highlights because it is going to be covered by either one of the riders. However, I'm showing I'm putting the highlights in there to show you guys, if you are doing riderless horses that happen to show some of the rib cage, then obviously you've got that there. If for some reason you remove the rider from the horse, then you've still got some highlight there. Obviously I've sort of left the magnet exposed. You can see that there a little bit, but it's not too much of a problem. And you'll notice I've gone ahead and painted the base up. I felt that there's no real need to show that in this video. I've shown you guys the bases before. I'm pretty much doing them in the same method so that they all match up. So there's not really any need to drag the video on any longer by showing you, painting the bases over and over again. So obviously I'll go around with the Screaming Skull, pick off all those edge highlights, and we'll come back and take a look at the finished model. Right, and there is the painted steed ready for his riders. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. If you are new to the channel, big warm welcome to you. If you recently subscribed, thank you for your support in helping the channel grow. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do consider hitting that subscribe button for more videos like this, and also the upcoming Imperium collection for Warhammer 40k. If you want to check out the video for either of the riders, you can check the link in the top corner here. But until next time guys, thanks for joining me, take it easy, keep painting those minis.